Horrifying breaking news on this Thanksgiving Eve about the ambush attack at the White House today that has left two National Guardsmen in critical condition. The picture of the attack is now coming more into focus. All that we had on the attacker was that his description of a Arabic Muslim man with a long beard and this blurry image is what we've had for the last 8 hours. And now we finally know who this attacker was and what their motive was. And most importantly, why the hell are they in our country? We know it all, ladies and gentlemen. Here is a clearer picture of the actual attacker and their identity. Ramla Lankwal from Afghanistan, 29 years old, Afghan national, entered the United States under Joe Biden in 2021 and overstayed his visa here, ladies and gentlemen, illegally, and screamed Allahu Akbar during the attack when he approached the two unarmed National Guardsmen who were armed only with a pocket knife and with a handgun and shot them at point blank range. Ramanullah Lakhdwal from Afghanistan. This monster is in our country, this evil, sick, terrorist bastard, because of Joe Biden, and was allowed to stay here because of Joe Biden, and has entered our nation most likely due to Joe Biden's nightmarish withdrawal from Afghanistan, where they just scooped up random people, did zero vetting, and allowed pretty much anybody who could get to an airport into our nation. What do you think that was going to allow? Terrorists to come into our country. Two National Guard soldiers shot in ambush-style horrific attack, lockdown at White House. Ramanullah Lankwal, 29, has been named as the alleged gunman in custody over the horrific shootout. The law enforcement sources told NBC News that the gunman had been identified as an Afghan national. Shooting began investigating a possible act of terrorism. He came to the United States during the chaotic U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021 under Joe Biden's Operation Allies Welcome. God. The operation sought to resettle vulnerable Afghans, including those who assisted the U.S. during the war. It is understood that Lankwal was residing in Washington state. Donald Trump vowed that the animal who shot him will pay a very steep price. Cass Patel confirmed that two soldiers were targeted and that they were being treated at a local hospital. West Virginia Governor Patrick Morrisey earlier sparked confusion by announcing that they were dead. They are in critical condition. The graphic images from the scene showed soldiers lying injured in the pavement, blood pouring from their heads. Clearly had been a shot in the head. Trump deployed 2,300 National Guard troops to D.C. The FBI ATF Secret Service swarmed the scene. A helicopter landed on the National Mall to evacuate one of the wounded guardsmen. Oh, it'll make you so angry. Will we stop committing suicide as a culture? Will we finally put an end to this? Will we finally force remigration? Will we shut all migration down to zero? Some people are posting this photo. I have not confirmed if this is the official photo of the actual. It looks years old. But if this is the photo, this is what people are alleging online. Ladies and gentlemen, this individual here illegally as a visa overstay, Afghan national, brought here under Joe Biden because Joe Biden nightmarishly surrendered Afghanistan to terrorists in the worst possible way and then evacuated and just grabbed any random Afghani that they could on their way out. You remember them falling off the planes and everything. Multiple law enforcement officials tell CBS News the suspect was an Afghan national who entered the U.S. in 2021 and then screamed Allahu Akbar.
Obviously, it would add a big different look at this. It's a tragedy either way, as those National Guard troops were attacked.
Yeah, there's some reports that he shouted Allahu Akbar, a phrase that we've become painfully familiar with from Muslim extremists through the age of terrorism. That would probably short circuit what would have otherwise been rather a poisonous debate about motive here. If it turns out to be an act of terror, that puts it in a different category for sure. But this was about as cold-blooded an attempted murder as we could imagine. No justification for it in any way, and one hopes and trusts that people will not try to do so.
Law enforcement have identified Ramanullah Lankwal as an Afghan national, possible act of terrorism. It is being investigated and classified as an act of terrorism. Now, President Trump just this week designated the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization. Of course he was. It is time to start using the military for deportations. These people have to go. That is exactly right. Incongruent with our culture. Law enforcement sources in DC tell me the National Guardsman was an Afghan national who used a revolver. The guardsmen themselves were not armed with a firearm. They used a pocket knife to stab the suspect. Another guardsman responded to gunfire, shot the suspect multiple times. The suspect reportedly shouted, Allahu Akbar. An Afghan national. We can either mass deport these savages or sit by passively and watch our civilization crumble. That is exactly right. We need mass deportations and remigration right now. Remigration of large swaths of populations and cultures that have been brought here on potentially legal or illegal grounds that have and do not assimilate into United States culture. I mean, this is like exactly what the 1928, 1924 immigration laws are all about. You have to have a time of assimilation. You can't just keep bringing in every culture on earth, creating their own microcultures in places like Somalia or all throughout Texas, building their own Sharia cities. You won't have a country. We've already seen how this plays out in Europe. You have to have a time. J.D. Vance just proposed this. You must have a zero immigration time for the country to settle down, for the pot to cool. And yes, remigration should be mandatory. Like for instance, Trump took away the temporary protected status of Haitians and Somalis over the last 2 weeks. We must require remigration for peoples that are here, that are either visa overstays or have their TPS stripped away from cultures that are clearly incongruent with America. It is not your right to move to America. An Afghan national enter the U.S. under Joe Biden. We need a complete immigration moratorium until we've done a complete review of everyone who entered the U.S. under Biden. All asylum claims need to be reviewed again. All illegal aliens deported. We cannot say it enough. It's a possible act of terrorism. That is how it's being investigated. The guardsman only had a pocket knife. Oh, man. It makes me so angry. President Trump, I hear, will be making an announcement shortly on this. Ladies and gentlemen, more details on the attack right here.
The difference in Washington, D.C.
Wait, sorry.
Is down
hold on,
significantly.
Chairman, hold on. We just got this. I need to get to it. This just in, sources are telling Fox News that the shooter is an illegal immigrant from Afghanistan who came in during Operation Allies, welcome under the Biden administration. And he overstayed that visa. All right, Chairman. So Fox News is learning that this person was here illegally, overstayed his visa, and that's who this shooter profile is. What's your immediate reaction?
Well, my immediate reaction is we tried desperately to get an accounting of all the people that came from Afghanistan to the United States during that disastrous withdrawal during the Biden administration. That was a huge priority for the House Oversight Committee. We never got that information. We were never allowed to get that information because I don't think the government had any idea. I don't think they kept an accurate accounting. I don't, and if they did, I think they realized there were probably lots of gaps. We were told there were going to be about 2,000 people that had worked with our military as people that tried to help with the cause, to help protect our troops in Afghanistan.
Right.
But then at the end of the day, there were closer to 100,000. But we don't know what that number was, and I don't think the government has kept good track of it. And I'm sure there were mistakes.
Radical action needs to be taken. We cannot continue to allow our nation to be overrun with people who hate us. Radical action must be taken. The left is inherently violent. They create violent policies, whether it's their agents who are committing the violence in the case of President Trump, Charlie Kirk, and so many others, the ICE shootings, or whether it is their ideology that is allowing the violence to pour onto our streets, judges who are letting people who have 70 prior arrests back out onto the street, or immigration policies like this that are just suicidal. It has to end. It has to end. If you agree with that, like, share, and subscribe. See ya.